Good morning. I was reading out of one of my favorite Christmas Advent devotionals this morning, and the very beginning of it just reminded me of a situation in my own life that I wanted to share in hopes that it might encourage some of you. Or maybe even challenge some of you, because I know it's challenged me. And so, the two scriptures that this started out with today are probably going to be pretty familiar to many of you, but I just think they're just such good. I mean, all scripture is good and God breathed, but these are just, they can be applied so many times in our lives. Psalm 46:10, be still and know, recognize, understand, I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And then Proverbs 3:5 and 6, and this is the Amplified Version. Trust and rely confidently on the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own insight and understanding. In all your ways, know and acknowledge and recognize Him, and He will make your path straight and smooth, removing obstacles that block your way. Excuse me. And then there was a quote that says, I wonder how many situations that we would call disappointments, hassles, setbacks, that might actually be the loving hand of God trying to slow us down for the sake of our souls and so that we might receive Him. John Eldridge. So let's see, this was back in July. I had taken my car in for a routine oil change, and my car has a lot of miles on it because I was a realtor for 16 years. And I just stepped away from that career back in November of 2024. And so I was, during the peak of the market, I was driving this specific vehicle. It's a 2022, but it has almost 100,000 miles on it, or it did at this time at the end of the summer. And of course, 100,000 miles is when like your warranties and stuff start running out, like your powertrain and everything. And so I took it in for this routine oil change, and they said, your car is like guzzling oil. And this can happen in some vehicles, but what it would mean if it's doing what we think it is, you may need a new transmission soon. So you probably want to go get this taken into the dealership before you hit your 100,000 mile mark. So I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I love my car. I had no intention of, getting rid of it anytime soon, but replacing a transmission did not sound fun. And I sure wanted to make sure it was under the warranty if we were going to do that. So I called the dealership, and they said, well, we will have to change the oil again to make sure that, the right amount of oil was put into the first place, and then you'll drive it 1,000 miles, and then we'll recheck it again, and we'll go from there. So I take it in, and then fast forward, I've driven almost that 1,000 miles, and I realized, like, oh my goodness, I need to call them this week and see if they can get my car in. Well, this specific week happened to be right after they found the mass in my chest, and they were going to biopsy me that week biopsy the mass to see if it was cancer and what kind of cancer and all that. So you can imagine a lot of emotions going on, a lot of things happening, and not knowing, what are going to lie in the days ahead. And so still trying to wrap things up. And I'm part of a nonprofit organization, and we had a couple of meetings that week, some in the Tulsa area and some about an hour and a half away. And so the meeting that was an hour and a half away was going to be on that Wednesday. My biopsy was Tuesday, and I was just leaving some meetings in Tulsa on Monday. I called the dealership. I told them, like, this is where I'm at on miles. This is, I need to bring it in this week. And the girl said, well, like, you have to have it in right at that 1,000 miles. Like, if you go over it, then we have to start over. And I'm like, what? I was annoyed. Like, why didn't anybody tell me this? And so I'm looking at how many miles I have on it, and I'm like, we're running really close. And I'm thinking we were going to drive my car to the hospital to get this biopsy. I was going to drive my car on Wednesday to go to this meeting an hour and a half away. There's no way. I can't do that. So I'm trying to figure it out. Long story short, what ended up happening is the dealership said they could, if I would bring my car in early Wednesday morning, before I needed to head out of town for that meeting, they could carry me back home. And then Ryan happened to have his car here that I could use. So Ryan's my son, if you don't know us, and you happen to be listening to this. So I thought, okay, we'll do that. So I have my biopsy on Tuesday. I get up Wednesday morning. I get to the dealership at like 7:30 in the morning so that I didn't have to wait. And they have me get in a car with this guy that's going to carry me home. Didn't know him from, never met the guy before. I would say he's probably in his 20s. And I'm thinking, like, I don't want to drive 20 minutes and not speak to this person. That's weird. Plus, I'm a people person. I just love people. So I was like, how do I, so I was like, oh, how long have you worked here? And so it opens up this conversation of him saying that, he had started working here. He wanted to kind of work his way up and kind of tell me what he was interested in doing at the company. And I kind of had I had a distant cousin that did some similar things, and so I was kind of explaining some of, like, he's really loved that, he's done good with this and whatever. And then out of the blue, he says, well, I was going to be a preacher. I've always been planning to be a preacher. And I said, oh, really? I said, and I'm thinking, I just felt that prompting, like, there's more here. So I was like, really? Well, what changed? And he ended up telling me that he had had some really deep pain and hurt in his life because his grandfather, which is who he had just really looked up to and admired, that had been an evangelist and a pastor, that he and I think his sibling had been traveling with them when they were younger most of their lives and doing ministry with them, that he had passed away. And that it was just really hard. It was really hurtful. And that since it's just been really hard. And he said in his own words, I just haven't been living right, and I've been out of church. And I just encouraged him. I'm like, well, that's okay. Like, we all have seasons in our lives and things that are hard, and we aren't perfect people, and God is not upset with you. Like, he would be so glad for you to enter right back in. And so then he went on to tell me that he kind of had a little bit of things that he was frustrated about, where he had tried to go to church that it was just so different than what he grew up with. He had moved to this area from a different area, and that's why he was having to try to find a new church. And then he, out of the blue, says, well, but I've actually gone to this new church these last 2 weeks, and I love it. The preaching is wonderful. I don't know. I feel like it's where I belong. I just love it. And I said, oh, yeah, well, where is that? And you guys, it was my church. And so I was able to then encourage him and share with him about how to get connected, how to get involved. And we just had this great conversation. Well, anyway, he says, like, well, what's going on with you? And I'm thinking, like, do you just say fine, or not much, or do you say, like, I just had a biopsy yesterday to find out if I have cancer? And one thing that I really felt impressed by the Lord in this journey is to let people, like, to be open and vulnerable and let people see wrestle. And so I said, well, actually, I had a biopsy yesterday because they have found a baseball-sized mass in the upper left portion of my chest, and we're waiting to see if I have cancer and what kind. And then it moved him, and he said something like, I'm so sorry. And then he goes on to tell me about another family member who he loves so dearly and deeply, who had also had a not great test result that week and was facing some hard things and some diagnosis that's some very, very rare, form of this situation. And I believe it was cancer. I tried not to push and pry, but from what he let me know, it seemed like that it was cancer. And so I felt this so strong prompting in my spirit: ask him what her name is and pray for her and pray for him. And I'm thinking, like, Lord, this is hard. This is weird. And hold on, I'm getting a phone call. This is hard. This is weird, but I just knew. So I asked for her name, and I just said, is it okay if I pray over you and her? And he was like, absolutely. So here I am sitting in this car with this person I don't know, praying over his family member and praying over him. And we're both looking straight ahead, because we're driving, and he's watching the road. But it was such a special, you just knew that it was one of those divine appointments. So anyway, go on. He asked me as I get out, are you going to need a ride home later? As though eager to be the one to come pick me back up. And I didn't end up doing that. And I have been still praying for him, and hope that I run across him at church sometime. We go to a pretty large church, and right now I'm not in church because I'm having to isolate because of my immune system being low. But Anyway, go on and go to pick my car back up. And they were like, this doesn't even make any sense. But your car, not only is it fine, it didn't use any oil for those 1,000 miles. And I was like, what? And he goes, I don't know how to explain it to you, but it didn't use any oil. Like, it's perfectly fine. Your car needs nothing. You guys, believe it or not, like, it's up to you. But for me, hearing that, what it did for me was it made me realize that whole thing that seemed like such annoyance, such an inconvenience, it was all orchestrated for this young man to be able to be encouraged and prayed over, and for him to know that he is seen, known, and loved by an almighty God. That God has not forgotten him. God has not given up on him. God still has a calling on his life, and he sees him right where he is. That is the God that we serve, a detailed God that will move mountains to get our attention, to let us know how compassionate, loving, and kind and persistent he is in letting us know that. So the next time that something in your life seems really annoying, out of the way, I would say pause, pray, look up, because even in the most difficult, hard things, God is still working. He hasn't forgotten you. He's gone ahead of you. He's hemming you in behind. And he will take even the most horrible situations and still use them for your good. And not only that, it's not always about us. Many times, it's that he wants to use us in order to help someone else see him. So I hope this is encouraging to you today, and maybe challenging, but look up and see what God has for you. And not just look up, but look in front of you, see who God puts in your path, and see how you can be the hands and feet of Jesus.